So I will reopen the council meeting that was so briefly commenced just a little while ago, and invite the Reverend Stu Crossan for the prayer. We will just take a couple of moments, relax a moment. Pam has to realign her. Welcome.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you.
But just relax for a couple of moments and then we'll get the computer sorted out. I was expecting a little much of the changeover.
It's not fish and chips. Something from Nova and Silver one. Yeah.
Exactly. We will get our takeaways. Excuse me. We will get our takeaways now.
Where's mine?
Where's it sweet? Isn't it?
No, that's right.
Bribery and corruption.
We'll recommence now. The prayer today is, as I mentioned, by the Reverend Stu Crossan of St Matthew's Anglican Church.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, it's a privilege to join you and open your meeting this afternoon. Perhaps I could just start by reminding us of the reason for our season with a short reading from the Scriptures, and then I'll lead us in prayer. This reading comes from the Gospel of John. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognise him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. Can I invite you to bow your heads and your hearts as we join in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, for this season of Christmas, for the joys and stresses it brings. May we not lose sight of the peace that you came to establish. In all our endeavours, may we be full of your grace and truth. We thank you for your hand of favour over this last month in allowing Dunedin to lead the way in technological and educational advances. May these advances be matched by commitment to relational cohesion. Today, Lord, let us stand for whatever is pure and true and just and good. for the advancement of science and education and true learning, for the redemption of daily business from the blight of self-seeking, for the rights of the weak and the oppressed, for industrial cooperation and mutual help, for the conservation and the rich traditions of the past, and for the recognition of new workings of your Spirit in the minds of men and women of our own time, for the hope of yet more glorious days to come. Today, O Lord, let us put right before interest, let us put others before self, let us put the things of the Spirit before the things of the body. Let us put the attainment of noble ends above the enjoyment of present pleasures. Let us put principle above reputation. Let us put you above all else. God, as this council convenes today, may they know the wisdom and the grace they need to govern well, to ensure the peace and the prosperity of this city. God, bless them in their service. This we ask in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and our Saviour. Amen. May the Lord bless you in your ministry.
Right, moving on to apologies. I have an apology from Councillor Bezet for lateness. I'll move that the apology be noted, accepted. Secondly, Councillor Staines. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes, carried. Confirmation of the agenda. Now, I want to confirm the agenda, but with some changes. Obviously, there is the additional item that was circulated for the non-public part of the agenda regarding the university. That is an addition. In addition to that, I wish to change the timing somewhat. I would like to go through till 4:30, and if the public part of the meeting is not complete by then, I would like to go into non-public and address the issues around DCHL at that point, and then come back into public to complete the public part of the agenda, and then go back into non-public for the remainder of the non-public part. And the reason for that is the chair of DCHL cannot be with us after 6 o'clock. So I want to get the, clearly he has to be here for the issues, the agenda items that he's concerned with. So I will move that the agenda be confirmed with the addition of item 38A. You can speak to the...
No, I have a further amendment which I'd like you to consider, if I may.
Certainly.
It's simply that item 24 and item 22 are quite closely linked, and staff wish to speak to or introduce those items with a possible amendment which would affect both of those papers. So it would be helpful if they came one after the other rather than being separated by the appointment to the Cosy Homes Trust. So if it were possible to change the order of the Cosy Homes Trust and the amendment to the Grant Subcommittee, that would be most helpful from the perspective of considering them together.
I see. So this is, in other words, swap item 24 for 23.
Correct.
Thank you. Right. So what I'm doing is moving to confirm the agenda with three changes. Swapping the timing of item 24 for 23. Right, do you have another amendment as well?
Yes.
Right, okay.
I want to speak to your proposed.
Yes, well, when I've moved it, but Councillor Vandervis, I'm right, you do.
I would like to move that item 38 be moved into the public part of the agenda as opposed to the non-public.
So which one's 8?
It's the very last agenda item.
Okay. I am not particularly worried either way, but insofar as it requires, there may be discussion that councillors may want to have in non-public. I'm happy to confirm the agenda as it is, with the note that we will discuss moving that into public after discussion in non-public, if that's what council wishes.
I would like for it to be discussed in public without the possibility of it being discussed in non-public.
Well, we're not.
I don't want it hidden behind closed doors.
We're not doing that. It's a non-public item at the moment, and I'm happy to move it into public, but the will of council. But it is would be inappropriate to immediately say that we can have a rule that we can have discussion in non-public in public first.
Could we not know whether it was the will of the council now, whether it could be moved into public?
That's not an unreasonable.
We need to.
No, I'm answering that question, councillor.
Sorry, I was going to second that if it.
Councillor, I can answer one thing at a time. I'm not unhappy about that. But I just need some guidance as to process in terms of confirming the agenda. We will. Sandy, can you just? There's just a number of things. Bear with me while I work out which order to do things. Right.
Because you've already predetermined that.
Okay. Two things. Ms. Graham has pointed out that the easiest way to process this, if we have a vote on that, the issue from Councillor Vandervis in the first instance. Okay. Right. I've been advised that one of the people that prompted the item 38 would prefer that it be discussed in non-public in the first instance, and I will respect that. So we will not have a vote on that at the moment. What we will do is confirm it, but I can give you an assurance, Councillor Vandervis, that we will discuss it in non-public, and it can be brought into public at the will of the council at that point.
Point of order. The paper plainly states that the reason for this being a non-public is that the public conduct of the whole of the relevant part of the meeting would be likely to result in the disclosure of information for which good reason for withholding exists. Good reason for withholding exists is not the opinion of the complainant.
Well,
there has to be good reason for it to be a non-public. I don't believe
that it is. So that's it. But it can be brought into public if the council wishes after discussion in non-public. So I am moving from the chair that the agenda be confirmed with those three additions. The item 24 switches for 23, that we add item 38A, and that if the public part of the meeting is not completed by 4:30, then we will go into non-public for the purpose of addressing the DCHL related items, and noting that we will have a discussion about item 38 at that point, and possibly bring it into public at that point. Seconded, Councillor Staines. Any discussion? Councillor Thompson.
For the life of me, I can't understand why 38A is proposed to be in closed session.
Item
38A, am I allowed to speak its name?
38A is
renaming of University Oval. What is the reason for being in closed session?
The reasons are mentioned, as I understand it. That for to protect the commercial position of the university, as I understand it. That was the reason given, Councillor. I didn't want it.
Oh, it may be the reason given. I just can't find it.
don't believe it is there, Worship, because it wasn't included in the original agenda, so that reasoning isn't given in our papers.
And if it were to have been given in our papers, I can't for the life of me understand how how discussing it in open session in any way prejudices the any commercial issue.
Well, I assume, and I'll be guided by the Chief on this, that since the request came from the university, it was they that suggested that. I don't know, to be honest. It's a matter of a relationship issue and a commercial sensitive issue with the university. But I'm again happy to note that we can discuss that, and if council is of the mind, it can come into open session at that point. Right, any further discussion? Put it all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against?
No. Recorded, please.
Recorded, Councillor Davis? No. Okay, on to item number 4. Item 3, declaration of interest, that's just for noting. And on to item 4, I'll move from the chair that the public part of the minutes of the meeting of the Dunedin City Council held on the 3rd of November 2014 be confirmed as a correct record. Second, Councillor Staines. Discussion, Councillor Backhouse.
I don't believe that they are a correct record. What the minutes say in one part is that the Mayor asked me to withdraw a remark that I made. Close analysis of the video confirms that the remark that the Mayor asked me to withdraw is not a remark that I made. In particular, the Mayor claimed that I had made a remark about the intentions of council and staff, and also about the objectives of the cycling strategy. The video confirms that I never mentioned either the objectives of the cycling strategy or the intentions of council and staff. And this is the remark which now appears in the minutes as being attributed to me as having been made. I did not make it, either of those remarks, and the video confirms this. Therefore, I would like the minutes to reflect.
Councillor, just to clarify, does the minute specify the remark?
The minute specifies that I was ejected on the basis of a remark made.
That's right.
And when you go to the video, you give the reason for that ejection as the remark that I spoke of the intentions of council and staff and the objectives of the cycling strategy, and neither of those is factually the case.
Okay, it's not.
So the minutes are false.
No, they're not. And you can vote against them, but I'll remind you that the minutes do not specify the remark.
The minutes do specify that I made the remark that you ejected me for, and that is not true, and the video proves this.
Okay, you can vote against it. Any other discussion? I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Abstain, and on the basis that the Mayor asked me to withdraw a remark that I did not make.
I'll further move from the Chair, this is item 4B, that the minutes of the extraordinary meeting of the Dunedin City Council held on the 24th of November be confirmed as a correct record. Second is Councillor Staines. Any discussion? Put all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 4C, that I move that the public part of the minutes of the extraordinary meeting of the Dunedin City Council held on the 1st of December 2014 be confirmed as a correct record. Second to Councillor Staines. No discussion. I'll put all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. On to the minutes of the meetings. Item 5, the Hearings Committee. Councillor Noon.
Thank you, Worship. I move that the minutes of the Hearings Committee meeting held on the 25th of July 2014 be noted.
Seconded, Councillor Lord. Discussion? Put all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
And I'll further move, this is 5B, that the minutes of the Hearings Committee meeting held on the 29th of August, 3rd of August, sorry, beg pardon, start again, that the minutes of the Hearings Committee meeting held on the 29th of August, 3rd and 7th of October 2014 be noted.
Second to Councillor Wilson. Discussion? I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried.
And I'll further move, Your Worship, this is 5C, that the minutes of the Hearings Committee meeting held on the 22nd and 28th of October 2014 be noted.
Second to Councillor Wilson. Discussion, I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
And finally, Your Worship, this is 5D, that the minutes of the Hearings Committee meeting held on the 4th of November 2014 be noted.
Second to Councillor Hall. I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Okay, the committee meetings. Community and Environment, Councillor McTavish.
I move, Your Worship, that the Part A, items 1 to 9, 11 and 12 in the public forum of the minutes of the Community and Environment Committee meeting held on 24th November 2014 be noted. That the following Part B item of the minutes held on 24th November be approved, that being item 10, future use of Craigieburn, and that the Part C, item 13 of the minutes of the Community and Environment Committee meeting held on 24th November be taken in the non-public part of the meeting.
Second to Councillor Peake. Any discussion? I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 7, Planning and Regulatory Committee, Councillor Benson-Pope.
Chairman, I'm pleased to move the minutes of the Planning and Regulatory Committee meeting of 25 November 2014 be noted.
Second to Councillor Hawkins. No discussion. I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Infrastructure Services Committee, Councillor Wilson.
Your Worship, I move that the minutes of the Infrastructure Services Committee meeting held on 25th of November 2014 be noted.
Second to Councillor Lord. Any discussion? I'll put all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 9, Economic Development Committee, Councillor Staines.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the minutes of the Economic Development Committee meeting held on 1st December 2014 be noted.
Second to Councillor Wiley. Any discussion? Put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 10, Finance Committee, Councillor Thompson.
I'll move, Your Worship, that the public part of the minutes of the Finance Committee meeting held on the 1st of December 2014 be noted.
Second to Councillor Calvert. Discussion? I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against?
And that Part C, item 8 of the minutes of the Finance Committee meeting held on the 1st of December 2014 be taken in the non-public part of the meeting.
Second to Councillor Calvert. Discussion, I'll put all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 11, Audit and Risk Committee. Would someone like to move? Councillor Thompson.
The 7th of October 2014 moved that the public part of the minutes of the Audit and Risk Subcommittee meeting held on the 7th of October 2014 be noted, and that Part C, items 8 to 17 of the minutes of the Audit and Risk Subcommittee meeting held on the same date, strangely, be taken in the non-public part of the meeting.
Second to Councillor Calvert. Discussion. I'll put all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
In the meeting of the 6th of November 2014, move that the public part of the minutes of the Audit and Risk Subcommittee meeting held on the 6th of November 2014 be noted, and that Part C, items 8 to 19 of the minutes of the Audit and Risk Subcommittee meeting held on the 6th of November 2014 be taken in the non-public part of the meeting.
Second, Councillor Calvert. No discussion. I'll put all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Minutes of Community Boards. Item 12, Wakawiti Coast. Councillor Noon.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that the minutes of the meeting of the Waikiki Coast Community Board held on the 12th of November 2014 be noted.
Second to Councillor Wilson. I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 13, OTAGO Peninsula. Councillor Peck.
I move that the minutes of the OTAGO Peninsula Community Board held on 13 November 2014 be noted.
Second to Councillor McTavish. Any discussion? Put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 14, STRATH TAIERI Community Board, Councillor Lord.
I'd just like to move that the minutes of the STRATH TAIERI Community Board held on the 13th of November be noted.
Second to Councillor Wilson. Put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 15, MOSCIEL TAIERI Community Board, Councillor Wilson.
I'll move that the public part of the minutes of the meeting of the MOSCIEL TAIERI Community Board held on the 18th of November 2014 be noted, and further that Part C, Item 14 of the minutes of the MOSCIEL TAIERI Community Board meeting held on the 18th of November 2014 be taken in the non-public part of the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Lord. In discussion, I'll put all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 16, Chalmers Community Board, Councillor Noon.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that the minutes of the meeting of the Chalmers Community Board meeting held on the 19th of November 2014 be noted.
Seconded, Councillor Hawkins. I'll put all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 17, Saddle Hill Community Board, Councillor Wiley.
I move that the minutes of the meeting of the Saddle Hill Community Board held on 20th November 2014 be noted.
Seconded, Councillor Hall. Any discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Right, on to the reports. Item 18, Aquatic Facility Issues in MOSCIEL TAIERI Community Facilities Trust Feasibility Study. Welcome, Tony. Welcome, Pauline. Would you like to ask questions with any remarks?
Well, just by way of introduction, we received the report of the Trust early December, and want to acknowledge the work that the Trust has done to pull together a pretty comprehensive report. In the time since we received the report, though, there has been little time to undertake a detailed analysis of the report. So all we were really able to do was to put together the report that you have in front of you, which identifies some of the key issues that we believe will need to be worked through. The intent at the moment is to try and work through that as much as those issues and some other ones that might pop up as much as we can before your January long-term plan meetings, recognising that there's more information that you may want at that point. One thing that has come up since writing this report, which isn't included, and I'm not even sure the Trust is aware yet, is we will potentially an issue around water supply and wastewater supply in the MOSCIEL area. It's already at capacity in some respects, so we'll need to do some work around confirming any new pool in terms of its size and water requirements and discharge requirements. Don't know the answer yet, but we just flagged that that's one other issue that we'll need to look at. So other than that, Your Honour, all we've really done is tried to pull together as much as we can in a short time frame with a view to, depending on what decision you make today, putting something forward in further detail for January. Noting, however, that we will have a slight problem in terms of staff availability, but we'll do what we can.
Councillor Thompson.
In the light of the fact that we have a significant time constraint today, and the fact that staff report is essentially to say they haven't had time to consider the matters, I wonder if the Mayor would entertain a motion that we put the recommendations without further discussion.
Close the motion. I can decide, I think, whether that's a reasonable... Sandy's not here now. You're seconding that, Councillor Calvin?
I was just wanting to ask a wee question before, but is that...
No, I'll second it. Well, seconded, and I'm happy to take a question, however, if you want some clarification on...
Just bearing in mind the water issue you raised, does that have any effect on the development fund contributions and things if we might need to do something water-wise in relation to the pool? I'm not perhaps wanting an answer now, but could that go into the mix if it's...
Yeah, well, two things. We don't know that there is a water problem. It's just that we'd had insufficient time to look at the capacity issues in that network, but that would certainly be an issue that would need to be considered.
Thank you. Now, just going back to Councillor Thompson's motion, my understanding is that it's a closure motion, and the basis for a closure motion is either that at least two people have spoken on either side of the motion, which in fact we don't have one in front of us at the moment, or the chair decides if it's a reasonable thing to do. And I think that in light of the fact that we can't, the staff are not in a position to make a great deal of comment about the report that's been put in front of them, I rule that it is a reasonable thing to do, so I'm going to allow the closure vote. So you're moving, Councillor Thompson, the recommendations as on the order paper, and you're seconding Councillor Benson-Pope. I'll open pipe.
Can I just ask a question, Your Worship?
Yes, sure.
Would the mover and the seconder entertain the idea of just picking up on what Mr Avery has just told us about? There is some further work happening in terms of an investigation with regards to water and wastewater capacity. So if we can just note that work isn't complete or hasn't started by the sound of it. So the mover and seconder.
So that's basically if
that's covered by the current recommendation.
Sorry?
Well, with respect, it doesn't talk about water and waste infrastructure, and that's what we've just been told, which is some additional information.
My suggestion is that it be added as number 4, noting that work remains to be done. That's what you're suggesting, Councillor Noon?
Well, I was just trying to find a way through that we shouldn't ignore what Mr Avery has told us, and I accept that the recommendations were made before that information was available. I was just picking up on that.
I'd like to stress that this water is one of them, but we're going to go through more. We will be looking at transport as well. We need to go through several of these things that we standardly go through. What effect would a pool or a facility like this have on the environment? So this would be one of them, and I think we've covered it off, and it might be not as clear, but in one of the points that still needs to be investigated. So yes, plus more.
Are these questions, because I'm aware that...
It's an amendment or a subsequent motion? It's an amendment, if that's all right. I'm advised, as I thought, a closure motion is not up for discussion. So, subsequent motion afterwards.
Right. Okay. So I'm moving it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Councillor.
I've had the pleasure now of hearing Mr Steadman talk to both the Community Board and here and enunciate the number of meetings they've attended and the work they've done, and I just think it would be terrible not to, especially with them here, but mark this off as a brilliant job in a very short time frame from the whole of the TAIERI's Community Facilities Trust, and to acknowledge thanks to them, and to that end I'd just like to move that the Council acknowledge the great work of the Trust and to thank them for the efforts to date.
Second to Councillor McTavish. Councillor Van Vis, do you wish to speak?
Just a brief question for Pauline.
This is the motion we've got is the motion thanking the TAIERI Facilities Trust. So, just want to say. There's no further discussion. I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Right, moving along. Item 19, the Dunedin City Speed Limits Bylaw. I think we've got and Jenny. Welcome. Now, is there anything you would like to kick off with?
Just a very brief introduction. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. This process started some 15 months ago and has involved public consultation and hearings by the Hearings Committee. So what we're proposing here is some changes to the speed limits for a number of roads and also some roads outside schools.
Questions, councillors? Just before we do, I might be reminded that on the order paper that I need to move that the minutes, so I'll move from the chair that the minutes of the Speed Limits Bylaw Hearing Subcommittee held on the 30th of September 2014 be noted. Seconded Councillor Staines. Is there any discussion on that? I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Okay. Up for questions, Councillor Carroll.
This is just sort of a quick, hopefully, question. You've said that there's no cost outside the normal budget for doing signage for these roads. I understand, as a result of an email from you last week, I'll just quote it, as was mentioned It is generally acknowledged that signage alone is not very effective at reducing speed. I would anticipate speed humps alone are more effective due to their physical nature. So my question is, if signage is not effective at reducing speed, do we need speed bumps here, and if so, does that increase the cost significantly? I note that 4 speed bumps up in Opaho recently were costed at $25,000.
Okay, just to clarify, so the question is in relation to a completely different exercise or areas rather than the speed limit bylaw review, so I'll defer to Diana to give you a technical response.
With regard to the proposed speed limits and the recommendations, the proposed speed limits, and they have been recommended for endorsement by the Hearings Committee, they actually reflect the current speed environment. So we do not anticipate having to use devices like speed humps to affect that change.
Sorry, the question was whether speed limit notices are likely to have the effect of reducing speed, since that was the object of the exercise here, and we've just heard that speed bumps are much more likely to reduce speed than speed notices.
That is correct, that speed bumps are more effective because they control the physical speed that the cars travel. In this case, I don't believe that the environments, from what I understand, that speed humps were needed in these cases, that this was more about legal speed limit posting and reductions.
Councillor Benson.
Just could Mr Orange or Ms Munster confirm that these regulations also include the variable speeds around school zones that were previously mooted, which might make it problematic to have speed humps that change their height?
With regard to the proposed the 40k school zones, you are correct. It is something that we will monitor, and the police will also be enforcing those areas. So that's something we'll just see how we go with those.
Councillor McTavish.
Just a quick question in relation to the school zones, and forgive me, this may have come to us earlier in the original paper, but can you remind me, these 4 schools, were they identified by a working party or by staff as being particular schools that we wish to work with, or is this the first of a program rollout of variable speed zones around schools? I have read the paper at the back. I understand the criteria around Board of Trustees commitment and principals commitment, but I'm seeking to understand whether or not we can expect to see more of these into the future, or whether it is a school initiated process.
With regards to the schools that were selected for the 40k school zones, they were selected primarily by staff following quite set procedures that have been set down by the New Zealand Transport Agency.
So is it staff's belief that this is the extent of schools that qualify for this treatment in our area, or are there other schools that might, if they see this and they like it, apply to you for consideration as part of that?
With regard to other schools, we are open, but at the moment the schools actually have to meet the criteria set down by the New Zealand Transport Agency. I'm not trying to be, we sort of followed a bit of a tick box approach, but we will also be watching with interest how the 40k variable works. It's the first time we're using them in Dunedin, and we will take it as it comes. Thank you.
It's also my understanding that the assessment of the sites, there's a lot of schools in Dunedin and such, so these are the ones that were considered the high-risk areas that there was the most benefit from having a variable speed. So it was due to the sort of local environment situations. Also, in terms of the next question, which was, will there be more coming forward? Next year we don't anticipate that we'll be having a speed limit review because there's upcoming legislation changes which will change the process that you can see in front of you here, which will theoretically make it much easier and have a better focus on risk and safety and reducing speeds where it's more appropriate as well.
So just to confirm, if there are schools that feel that they have a safety issue that would be if not remedied, certainly alleviated by a 40 kph variable speed limit, then they should contact staff in the first instance to effectively get on a waiting list for that process, which won't be happening next year but maybe happening in 2016.
That's correct. They have conversations with us about their concerns, and there may be other treatments or measures that could be put in place rather than speed limits per se. Speed humps, for example, might be more appropriate in some situations. So there's just considering those alternatives.
It's not really a question, but you in moving the report, you prevented me from taking the opportunity to thank staff. I chaired this working group. Can I just make a comment now? I do want to make just a statement of thanks from myself, Councillor Hawkins and Councillor Peat, who heard these hearings. And this... Councillor Hall. Oh, Councillor Hall, I'm sorry. Sorry, Councillor Peat. My apologies. The decisions and the consultation have also been discussed at the committee level, and councillors might recall me arguing actually that we should have a blanket regulation for all schools. And this response is a response that, on the advice of the transportation planners, and in a very tortuous process, actually is the best fit of safety solutions of either humps, in the notable case of Councillor Wiley's favourite speed hump at Tahuna, or the variable speeds in other places. And I think that's a good approach. It's an exhaustive approach by way of the transportation laws, but I think staff should be complimented on the methodical way in which this has been worked through. Indeed, in respect of the Peninsula in particular, the process that's been used by this authority and the staff you see sitting at the table, particularly Ms Munster, is a model of how to go about discussing these issues with the community, and I think we should express our gratitude for that work.
Would you like to hold that thought until we move the recommendations on page 19.1 and add it to the bottom? Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Daniels.
On 19.3, we're talking about reducing the speed of Logan Park Drive over its whole length from 50 to 30 kilometres. Given that there's often some very strong pressure for parking there, will the lowered speed limit allow you to put more dense, perhaps angle parking into some areas along Logan Point Drive? Or has that not been thought about?
I don't believe it's been thought about as part of this process. I would have thought that's outside the scope, but I'll just check with Diana on that.
There's a whole management plan of Logan Park Drive. The 30k speed limit that's been introduced as part of a package of measures that are being put into Logan Park Drive by our Parks and Reserves Department, so they would be in a better position to answering that. But the speed limit and angle parking, I believe, are separate questions. They're not dependent on each other.
I was under the impression and have been asking for quite some number of years now regarding the university area and the parking pressure there, that if we were to reduce speeds from 50 to 30k in quite a few of those areas, that would allow safe angle parking, which at 50k's is considered to be not safe. I was hoping that perhaps this might be looked at, and hoping that we didn't fall between two departments, one that was just looking at speed and another that was perhaps interested in some more parks if they were available.
Councillor, I'm not sure that the current staff can inform you on that, but I know that there is a study being done and developed now in the tertiary precinct which is looking at exactly some of those things. So they may come on in the next few months.
And they may come on for Logan Park Road as well?
Look, I'm not sure where the perimeter of the area is, but they're certainly looking at those exact issues. Any further questions? Would Councillor Benson-Pope, can I invite you to move the recommendations with your additional... And so your additional one, and secondly Councillor Hawkins, your additional one is basically commending staff for both the scope and the exemplary nature of the work that they did.
Exactly, thank you.
Would you care to speak to your...
I think I've already done that.
I think you have too. Any further speakers? Councillor Pitt.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just refer to the inclusion of the Portobello Road reduction from 70 to 50 from the Glenfelloc area out to St Ronan's Road, and you'll see reference on 19.4 at number 7. My first issue is that I measured that over the last day or so, and it's more like 400 to 500 metres, not 100 or 120 as we've got in the report. I know there have been a number of submissions against that. I wouldn't have thought that was a priority for safety, given that you could even think of almost justify extending it to the SBN, the 35k, where there are other intersections there with roads. But I can't say that it's going to do much to change the present behaviour there, because most vehicles would travel at least below 60. In that section we're reducing to 50. I'm probably stuck here thinking I can't vote against it unless we separate it out. So I just wonder whether how we deal with that.
Do you wish to vote against it?
I think so, because from my long experience of driving that road, there would be safety issues for when it comes to traffic trying to turn into St Ronan's or Rosehill roads, but the visibility lines are reasonably clear there, and I really don't think there is an issue there.
Let me see. I take it you're feeling uncomfortable about voting against the whole lot.
I am.
In order to vote against one.
With the rest of it.
Right. So I'm, with the leave of the meeting, I'm happy to split out the Portobello Road one. I'll put all the rest, and then we'll put that one, and you can vote against it. So if there's no further speakers, I will I'll put the recommendation minus the Portobello Road section. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And the Portobello section on its own. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? No. It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Diane. Item 20, Development Contributions Hearing Process.
I'll sit out of this, Your Worship.
Yeah. Andrew, Councillor Noon sitting back. Welcome, Alan. If you want to introduce the 41
It's all right, Neve. Get on TV. This is on TV.
So this is with regard to membership as the chair of the Crime Standing Committee.
I think it needs motion. It's sort of in three, but it's been considered.
So that needs to be another decision. Okay. We'll open up into questions for a start. Councillor Wilson.
I just want some clarity. On page 20.3, you talk about the chairperson of the hearings committee is not included in the membership because of a suggested conflict, to avoid conflict. I don't understand. I just want to understand what the conflict might be and whether in reality there may be a number of councillors if they're sitting on hearings panel, or should it just be anyone on a hearings committee be excluded? Because we're either conflicted or not, it's not just the hearings committee chair.
I think the reason was that because of the involvement with hearing a resource consent which has this development contribution on, and then there is a potential conflict there. But I take your point about the fact that it's going to be normally 3 councillors, so by default, yes, you probably conclude that all 3 shouldn't sit. So I think the decision should be whether it's appropriate to exclude that particular hearing committee or to allow all of them to or the chair of that committee to sit on that.
Well, just taking that question further and understanding what the conflict is, if you could expand on I'm not sure that there is a conflict, and I just want to check what the conflict is, because if there is a conflict, and that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is, in making up the Development Contributions Hearings Committee, considering the small number of people on that and the fact that some of those currently are hearings commissioners, whether it would be better to increase the constitution and membership of that to include deputies so that you've got a big enough pool on.
Well, I don't think that's a question that staff can answer. The chief might want to comment on it.
So the first question is the conflict, though, and then the second question is with the membership.
I guess the conflict's coming down to it's largely a perception issue where a chair has been involved in the first part and they get involved in the second part, and whether or not that's a full conflict or other than the perception issue, I'm not entirely clear, but it's probably worth considering a little bit further.
Are you seeking a view from...
Well, it might be helpful if Sandy or Ms Graham considers whether there is a conflict, because it has to be one that goes to the whole hearings panel, not just to the chairmanship, I would have thought.
Can you clarify, for the sake of this, if we're going to ask Ms Graham to respond to that, can you clarify, you're asking why the chair of the hearings committee is not included in the Development Contributions Hearings Subcommittee?
No, I'm asking why only the chair has the conflict, not the whole hearings panel that heard that the resource consent would have the conflict. Have I missed it? There may be a stage that I've missed out in the process, because I would have thought that if it's everyone on the hearings panel that heard that case that would have the conflict.
But it's only chairs that are going to be on this panel, so...
No,
some of us are hearings panel members. Some of us chairs.
Yeah, so the point, just to clarify for everyone's benefit, is that there are various chairs who sit on hearings panels, and there could be a conflict with any of them, not just the chair. Is that your point?
Yes, yeah.
Right. Well,
Could I ask a different question?
2 minutes while we get a discussion here. We'll get a clear answer before we proceed.
Just excluding anyone that's been involved.
It's conflict. The chair Sorry. Go apologise, I did ask Cindy.
Okay, so, Sandy, would you like to explain that, or do you want me to?
Would you like me to?
Well, my understanding is, Chief.
I think there's a perception of conflict, but I think there is a conflict in that often, more some occasions than others, the chair of the hearings panel can be asked to provide advice even in hearings where he's not playing a role. And so the point of asking the chair to sit aside was when you pick the person to sit in this panel, the quorum or the group to sit and make a decision about DCs, you wouldn't choose any of the hearings commissioners that sat in that hearing, and that's very clear and it's set out, it's in the minutes, and it's very easy to see who that is. It's a lot more difficult to know from afar whether the hearings panel chair was ever called on to give advice or help or clarification, and in fact it frees him up to do that. So the simplest mechanism was thought to just exempt the hearings chair, which means he's free to give advice on any regardless of whether DC's exemption is going to be sought. But the members of the hearings panel just simply, they all make up part of the group who can be called on. They just wouldn't be called on to give advice when they've sat on the hearings panel, and we all think it's a really good idea to add the pool of deputies. Just to add them into the pool, so it broadens the number of people that can be asked. Right,
that's fine.
Councillor McTavish.
Just a couple of questions, and one just relates to, I guess, the number of members. It's not clear to me in here, it says quorum 3, but presumably that's quorum, that's not number of subcommittee members that would sit at any given time. So my reading of that was that all of us would have to sit, and that our quorum would be 3, but if that's not the intention, then perhaps that needs to be clarified. So 3 of the list, and then...
Yeah, that wasn't the intention.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, just to clarify, there'd be a pool of whatever, 9 or whatever, and for any deliberation, 3 would be selected, ensuring that no one who had sat on the original hearing was included in the 3.
Yeah.
That's right.
Clarify.
Yeah.
And then my second question is just in relation to the chair. I guess my perception of development contributions, and I seek to be clarified on this position, but is that it's effectively where finance meets spatial planning. And so, I mean, I have every, I really appreciate Councillor Staines' chairing silence. This isn't at all to speak against inclusion of him as a chair, but I wondered whether having Councillor Benson-Pope added to that list as a possible chair would be appropriate given the nature of that, the task that is effectively being performed by this subcommittee.
Well, I note that currently in the delegation manual, the chair is either the chair of finance or the chair of economic development. And Rebecca has just observed to me that we need to actually make a decision on that. You're suggesting that the delegation manual be amended to include the chair of planning and regulatory effectively as well.
Sorry, yeah, I didn't understand the import of that particular part of attachment 2. My understanding was that it was an either or depending on who was able or not conflicted, and I think having and if the reason was that neither of Councillor Staines or Councillor Thompson sit on the hearings panel and therefore will not ever be conflicted, then that's an entirely understandable position, and I would support that. But just from the perspective of distribution of roles and the committees, I would have thought that Councillor Benson Pope would offer something to that chair, which would be well aligned with what development contributions are about.
Let's just clarify what would be required in order to include that, because the delegation would need to be changed. So just bear with us.
It's a way to do it.
So we will put brackets around the term "or chairperson of the Economic Development Committee." As you'll see, the chairperson of the Economic Development Committee is also included in the list of members, although it says Economic Committee. The chairperson of Finance is not. So the intent is it's the chair of Finance, and if the chair of Finance is not available, then it will be the chairperson of the Economic Development Committee, which is why the chair of Finance isn't listed as a member. So you have two members who by and large won't be conflicted. You've got a backup if one of them is unavailable.
Councillor Thompson.
Has there been any consideration given to what the likely spread of these kinds of considerations is likely to be? Because it strikes me that $5,000 has been plucked out of the air somewhat arbitrarily, and to be fair, I'm not quite sure how one would really know. But I just don't have a sense of whether that means that almost everything's going to end up being heard by that hearings committee, or virtually nothing's going to get heard by that hearings committee, because it's either, small stuff or it's really big. So I just don't have a sense of that spread, and I wonder if you've given me
If I can answer that. We're still in early days of implementing the policy. It started 1 July, so we didn't really know how that exactly might pan out in terms of implementing it. But there is currently 3 before us at the moment. One for 17,000, 10,000, 13,000, and a small one at 3,000. So, and the minimum amount for a normal residential property to create one lot is just over 6,000. So the idea behind this was that we didn't want to get those people getting an incorrect impression that, you know, it's worthwhile putting in an application, because that just doesn't seem quite so appropriate. So it has, it's set at a level that we don't anticipate a lot coming in, and it is generally a reasonable sum of money which should be considered by the council, and the current policy does say it is to be considered by the council. So the delegation down to the staff at the general manager level was decided to be set relatively small, and not above that threshold of one extra household unit.
That's what I guess it's sucking to see.
Right, are there any further questions? Would someone like to move the recommendations on 20.2?
It's amended.
Yeah. Can I just seek clarification that it has been amended to reflect the fact that is it going to be a subcommittee of 3, excluding anyone that has been participating in an associated resource consent? So we talked about brackets, that's fine, around the Chair of Economic Development Committee. That provides clarity there. But where it says quorum 3...
Yes, we're going to make an adjustment to specify that it is a membership of 3, any 3 of those, but it will exclude any who sat on the resource consent hearings panel.
Thank you. So that's included in here?
Yeah, we'll make those changes.
Including deputies.
Yeah, and include deputies, yeah.
Thank you.
But what you're suggesting, Councillor McTavish, that it be expressed in these motions?
I'm comfortable if everybody understands that that's what we're supporting, but I just thought that that hadn't been clearly articulated.
We'll amend attachment 2.
Which is the delegations manual. Can I just inquire as to whether that requires the motion of council, since we've probably confirmed it already?
Sandy?
Sandy. If we want to amend the delegation, does that require a resolution of council?
The amendment 2 that is here in this report, which we've just made changes to, so we can pass it as amended. So we want to change that.
It's another motion.
Yeah, so I think we need an addition. So does that constitute?
Can you show me?
Yeah, sure. It is. This gets really good.
And that the amended version as agreed is what we constitute.
Yep.
So amending the last resolution to say that we're constituting the hearings, this committee, and as modified, but
Further attached delegation, which... Okay, so do we have a mover and seconder for that? Moved second, Councillor Staines, seconded Councillor Wilson. So the recommendations as on 20.2 with the addition that we're constituting the Development Contributions Hearing Subcommittee as per the delegation as agreed, or as recorded. Any further discussion? I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Rebecca. On to item 21, which is the proposed additional non-self-contained premium camping trial site at Bayfield Park. Who is? Welcome, Richard. Welcome, Mick. You want to introduce this review, or do you wish to discuss straight on question? So questions, Councillor Wiley.
Your Worship, can I move that the council declines...
Sorry, I'm being remiss. There is a speaker, and you'll note that there's a submitter for this consultation has indicated his wish to be heard, and rather than hold a separate meeting of council, we are able to form a committee of the whole right now, hear the speaker, and then return to the matter at hand. So I'll move from the chair that the council form into a committee of the whole in accordance with Standing Order A 6.3 to enable the submitter to be heard. Seconded Councillor Staines. I'll put all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. And Mr. Allen, can I invite you up, and can I invite you just to make a room? My apologies for that. I omitted to turn the page.
Thank you, Your Worship and councillors. My name's Wayne Allen. I'm a life member of the Ariki Harrier and Athletic Club, and I'm also a trust member of the Bayfield Park Community Sports Trust. Now, the Bayfield Park Community Sports Trust operates what's known as the Guthrie Pavilion, and for those who aren't aware, the trust and the pavilion incorporates the Bayfield School, the Ariki Running Club and the East Harbour Tennis Club, and it also holds functions to make it viable, weddings, etc. And the building is actually situated on school grounds, Education Board grounds. This property, and of course the school, borders very closely to the car park, where it's envisaged the possible trial of non-self-contained camper vans. The main concerns that we have is health and safety. The car park is, we're looking at the car park, it's approximately 100 metres from the edge of the car park to public toilets. It's envisaged, I understand, to have camper vans approximately 50 metres apart. Now, should that occur, from the centre of the car park, you'll be looking at approximately 150 metres. I've actually done the measurements. You'll be looking at 150 metres to these public toilets. A round trip of approximately 300 metres, of course. There's no lighting in the car park. There's no lighting on the actual park that you have to traverse to get to the toilets, which leads to the point of the possibility of defecating, number twos as we'd commonly call it, possibly in the inlet or in the native bush, which is very close to the edge of the car park. Halfway along the car park we have a boat ramp, and only a couple of days ago I noticed a lot of children using canoes there, where they do their flips and learn how to use the canoes. The last thing we want in the mornings is to find them using, it's very, very frequently used by canoes there. The last thing we want to find is certain objects and paper in the water. And further along, right next to the area there, is a playground, a relatively new one, and everybody's probably quite aware what's been found in the playground at McAndrew Bay. And that playground is a little bit further away from the car park to what it is out at Anderson's Bay. The playground is right next to the car park. I've measured it to be exact, 5 metres. The school use the car park every morning. For those who are unaware, it's very difficult for people to drop off their children in front of Bayfield High School. It's very, very busy around that area. So a lot of people are now dropping their children off in that car park, and all they've got to do is a short walk into the school grounds. That's first thing in the morning. The garden at the school has been what you might call raided. The children's, you can't always blame it on the camper van people, but it has been seen by security of people walking around with water containers, looking for taps in the school grounds. They're not local people, of course. And the school, part of the little curriculum they have with some of the school children is to keep that car park tidy, especially around the native area there. You can imagine with camper vans there, I don't think that will continue to happen. I have seen alongside the toilets, there's seating there, and I think it's what's called huffing or puffing or something like that. I've seen a person messing around there right next to the toilets. Now these toilets, we're worried about the fire aspect. This hasn't, I believe, come up before. The walls inside are wood, and there's other paper, of course, in toilets. And I don't know whether council realised that right next door there's LPG containers which feed gas into the showers of the council building, right behind the toilets. They're actually joined on. Macandrew Bay has had problems with washing in the toilets, and so has Ocean View. I have a friend who lives in Brighton and has experienced it at Ocean View. Not a good thing, and it's only a matter of time, of course, before the basins there will get blocked, and no need to ask being council who will have to do the unblocking of these toilets. And our emergency vehicles use that car park to get to the Guthrie Pavilion in a case of an emergency. I'm talking about fire, of course, and ambulance. There's a bar that operates there which they can get through straight to the pavilion. So there's all sorts of things you've got to consider if you're going to have freedom camping there. There's not a great issue with the other type of vehicles that aren't self-contained. But the big problem, of course, and it's everywhere, is unself-contained vehicles. Basically, in summing up, I'll just read what we've agreed to put to you, the council, today. We are totally opposed to a trial of not self-contained freedom campers. Based on our submissions, and what has previously happened at Mac Bay and Ocean View, and see no reason why circumstances would change. The council could be moving the problem from one area to another. And it would seem logical to us, in view of the council already being in consultation with DOC, Department of Conservation, over a possible basic campsite, to pursue this aspect. I think that should be pursued vigorously, really. I'm aware of basic dock campsites. There's one in the Catlins, a place called Papatawai. And the basic campsite has a toilet, running water, and of course the freedom campers have a little bit of security amongst being there themselves, with themselves. So there is that security also. I'm not silly enough not to realise that these type of people, they get these camper vans and do a quick trip around the South Island or New Zealand, known as the wicked ones or juicy type ones. It's a cheap way of getting around. They're not going to go to, unfortunately, some of the larger camping grounds which might charge $40 or $50 a night. We can try and steer them there, but I'm not so naive to not realise they probably won't go there. But if we can, as I say, get a basic campsite somewhere on the peninsula, close to one of the main roads for them, I believe that could be possibly the answer. Normally it's $60, normally it's $6 per person per night. Now, at a price like that, I myself think that's quite reasonable for possibly for these people to maybe stay there the night. So, Your Worship and Council, thanks very much for having me here. And originally I thought it would be a subcommittee meeting, so it's nice to meet you, all you illustrious people here today. But if there are any questions you'd like to ask of me, please do so. Sorry.
Questions,
Yes.
Councillor?
Thank you, Wayne, for that. I'm just wondering if you could tell us to what extent there is camping going on, freedom camping, or even contained vehicles using the Bayfield Park at present.
Yes, okay. I've lived in the area for almost 40 years now, very close to the area in question. I go past it every day, and although I'm retired now, I still go past it every day. And there are vehicles now using it. Not a huge number, but most nights there's a vehicle there. As to what problems have happened, Council will possibly know from their toilets there, but once you make it public throughout New Zealand with a pamphlet stating that these vehicles can stay there, we're pretty sure we know what will happen, as what we've seen at McAndrew Bay, of course.
Any further questions? There being none, Mr. Allen, thank you very much for your submission.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will move from the chair that the council resumes in formal meeting. Councillor Staines. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Can I invite Mick and Richard back again? So, Councillor Wiley, you had a question.
Your Worship, I'd like to move that the Council declines the proposal to add an additional trial site for non-self-contained freedom camping at Bayfield Park for the remainder of 2014-15 camping season.
Right, I've noted that motion. It's moved and it's been seconded, but I will allow, obviously there might be others who have questions, or Councillor Benson.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask Mr Saunders, subsequent to the emails we've had around problems at McAndrew Bay last Saturday or last Sunday morning, if there's been any further issues, what action had been taken in response to the overcrowding or the problems that eventuated in the sorting of the toilets, and had there been any further difficulties during this week, or whether he anticipated more in the crystal ball for this weekend.
Thanks, Councillor. I guess the questions raised there, actions taken following the emails of last weekend, so certainly a review of the cleaning contract in light of the concerns raised about the response time to the call about the soiling of the toilets down there has been reviewed, and action taken to ensure if that was to happen again that a cleaning crew could be dispatched quicker than was the case. As far as the overcrowding goes, that continues to be a challenge at McAndrew Bay in terms of the numbers of campers that are arriving at that site. There's been currently no change proposed to the existing schedule for security visits to inspect the numbers there and take action as appropriate.
Sure.
Well, after the numbers and difficulties of Saturday night, Sunday morning, I went, and as I said to you, there were no vehicles there on either side of any description on Monday, and that was early. How often have the security people been doing the checks, and what numbers have been there during the last week?
So the security visits are undertaken morning and night, 7 days a week. The numbers certainly peak in the weekends. I haven't got the report in front of me. Apologies for the previous week. So I'm not sure of the exact numbers they've been noting there, but it is clear from the reports that Thursday, Friday, Saturday are the busy nights.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Two questions. One is, and taking this in context, going way back before this bylaw came into place, there was a number of complaints about usage all over the peninsula, and there were complaints right round without us monitoring sites. How many complaints are we getting of freedom camping happening in other areas around the peninsula now, and some of those bad, the unintended consequences happening?
I'm aware of no other concerns raised in the wider peninsula area. I can't speak for all of my colleagues, but the majority of those calls do come through to myself. There's been one other concern raised specifically about the Oval, which is, I guess, within range of the peninsula as a specific site, but no other sites raised.
I just want to, the subsequent question is, so to an extent, the intention of the bylaw was to manage where these people were camping. One of the other parts that came out was ensuring that we highlight the benefits of where all the other official camping grounds are and the benefits that might go with them. Now, my understanding is that the brochure that we produce hasn't had that information, all of that information in to date. My understanding is that that is being updated, so that the online version will have the benefits of going to camping grounds highlighted.
Yes, I've received a request to review the brochure and look specifically at the information in there around the commercial campgrounds and what they offer. So we'll look to do that as quickly as we can.
Councillor Thompson.
Do we have any data at all around the number of non-self-contained vehicles that are in Dunedin, passing through Dunedin at all? I mean, I've made an assumption that it's not the 3 or the 5 or the 10 or whatever it might be on any particular night at McAndrew Bay, that it's quite a lot more than that. But I don't have any basis for that, and I wonder if there is any data.
No, there's no data we're aware of in terms of total numbers of non-self-contained campers in Dunedin. Yeah, and the motorhome association that we do get some data off generally are looking at the self-contained camper vans. So again, the data, because the non-self-contained is such a broad category in terms of cars right through to vans, it's very hard, I guess, to get that data. So we only have it anecdotally by the numbers that are turning up at the sites we're monitoring.
I guess I suppose what I'm wondering is, we're clearly aware of the problems of congregating them in one place because they're very noticeable. What I'm not clear about, and I don't know whether council has any information about it, is the extent to which there was a problem before we congregated them, and whether or not there are still a lot of camper vans that are just parked up on the side of the road or in any number of places, as opposed to just being the ones who are down at McAndrew Bay. Do you have any idea?
No, sorry, no data on that.
Councillor Peake.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question, but also some comments, and I'm not sure whether I...
Well, ask the question
yeah.
when we're in discussion.
Sure.
Fine.
The question is just in relation to the proposed dock-style campsite on the Otago Peninsula. Is there any more information you can provide about progress with that?
Progress with that is we're looking at engaging the people or persons to undertake that feasibility report, to have it available when we are, by the time we are required to review this section of the responsible camping policy, which is following this season. So we're working on that time frame to ensure that that information is in front of the council when that discussion's had.
And a point of clarification, Your Worship, just recommendation 1, the one which is not on our books right now, asked us to consider accepting the late submissions. I'm happy to propose that we do that.
It's not
can I just clarify? Their written submissions are they feel?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Further questions? Councillor Thompson.
The submitter spoke to the fact that, in answer to Councillor Pete's question, that there are people who are using that site now. I'm certainly aware that when I lived in Doon Street, there were people who were using the Vauxhall Boating Club on a regular basis. Neither of them designated sites. In assessing this particular area, what analysis have we done about the current problem down there? Is there a current problem? I used to be a teenage male once. I don't think I'd have walked 100 metres to the loo at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's probably too much information. But, you know, I mean, are we aware of whether we have a problem there now with use on perhaps a more limited basis?
We've got no complaints received about the use of Bayfield specifically. We're aware from members of the community and other people who've spoken to that there is camping there from time to time, but there has been no complaints received.
I would observe that you may be disinclined to walk that far when you're young, and when you're old you can't. Councillor Hawkins.
On that note.
Are you young or old?
Yeah, somewhere in between, hopefully. Two questions. One is with regards to the costs on 21.3 associated with expanding the trial, and just whether the assumptions that those are based on, whether that's just hourly rates or whether there's an assumption of uptake of those sites implied in this.
Those costs are a per visit rate from a security guard on the assumption that there would be significant demand on the site, so we would implement the same program as we do at McAndrew Bay.
Can I ask about the rationale for focusing on the weekends? Is that working backwards from complaints, or is that just that's peak usage related?
Sorry, focusing on the weekends.
Well, in terms of security visits, you were saying Thursday, Friday, Saturday visits.
No, Thursday, Friday, Saturday have the highest numbers of campers present. Sorry, the visits from security guards are morning and evening, 7 days.
And just secondly, and a lot of this conversation is focused around visitors and the hiring of rental vehicles, and then the sleeping in those vehicles. Just with regards to the now lower tolerance for blood alcohol limits among licensed drivers, were I to, not me personally, obviously, bigger concerns there, but were I hypothetically to be driving to a party somewhere and finding myself over that limit and sleeping in my car, would I technically be in violation of this bylaw?
You wouldn't be unless you required to use the bathroom and couldn't walk as far as the nearest toilet was. So the bylaw, a breach of the bylaw would be if you litter, and that could be toilet or litter outside of your vehicle. If you were just sleeping in your vehicle, no, that is not a breach of the bylaw.
So the camping itself is fine so long as you don't ever leave your vehicle while you're there, essentially.
It's the containment that's the problem. You need to contain yourself.
So the way the bylaw is, or the reason for the responsible camping policy and the allocation of the sites is to provide the facilities to allow the camping to occur in compliance with the bylaw. That's the way it's been framed. So by providing toilets and rubbish receptacles, then we are effectively providing an environment where those campers can comply with the bylaw, as opposed to them parking wherever they chose to, and those facilities may not be there, and they may breach the bylaw simply because the facilities aren't there for them to use.
Just going back to my suburban socialising, if I may, briefly. Outside of these sites that are laid out and possibly extended, is there any surveying done of other people who may or may not be sleeping in their cars and may or may not be relieving themselves outside of public toilets?
Historically, if I can, I guess before this bylaw and possibly part of the prompting for looking at this under by some legislative means, we used to get, I'm talking about we being, I guess, the Parks Department of Council. Council used to get periodically complaints, usually seasonal, about people who were parking on reserves, and I know Doc did too, and still do, parking their vehicle and sleeping in the vehicle and also going off to relieve themselves in the bushes and or over people's fences in some cases, and certainly some rural areas that was a problem. And these were periodic complaints, and I believe that was part of the background to looking at some place where, I guess, more respectable people who were driving around did at least have the opportunity to go somewhere and know where those kind of basic facilities could be provided for a night. But we have no structured monitoring, and I don't think any council has had any structured monitoring of trends or investigated or collected data on a substantial basis.
Just one more, if I may. So there is no limit per this bylaw as to how many self-contained vehicles can be camped at a site, so long as no more than 5 of those use the toilet facility.
Yeah, no. Sorry, can you just put that to me again, Aaron, Councillor, sorry, just so I can grasp it.
So if it's the use of the toilet or rubbish bin, for example, if that is the barometer or the benchmark for what quantifies non-self-contained camping, is it then fair to say that there's no restriction on how many vehicles are camped there, so long as no more than 5 of those vehicles use the toilet or the rubbish bin and therefore fit that category?
No, again, the 5 is included in the policy as our feeling on what an appropriate number is to ensure, again, that public access is not impeded. So the 3 factors within the Freedom Camping Act: public access, not impeding public access, and then health and safety around litter and human waste as well. So it's considered that the allocation of 5 spaces means that again, the campers won't be there in such volumes that they would be creating those issues that the Act and the bylaw seek to stop.
Councillor Calvert.
I'm wondering whether you can comment on what difference it makes the monitoring, because I can just sort of imagine somebody coming around in the evening and saying, you guys who are here, you know you have to be gone in the morning by, and popping back in the morning and saying, oh, you guys, you know you're here half an hour after the time you're supposed to be, and off they go again. Does that make any difference to anybody? What sort of effect does that have on behaviour? Because some of the complaints we're getting seem to be that monitoring is just watching the pot boil. It isn't making any difference to the pot.
The information we're getting back from the security guards is that the monitoring works to a point. In the mornings, it's proven to be quite effective in terms of encouraging people to leave by the 8 AM time, which is set. There is certainly an issue in the evenings with people turning up post the visits, and that's something I guess we're still working with and trying to resolve, but at this stage we're continuing with the current schedule.
Councillor Benson-Pope.
Thank you. Can I ask why you didn't include in the consideration, or aren't considering recommending the inclusion of the Vauxhall Yacht Club Park that's already been mentioned by a previous speaker?
The reason for that is the main reason is around the location of the boat ramps within that car park, and that there are 2 ramps there, and the way that the shape of the car park and where we could allocate 5 spaces would make it very difficult for vehicles with trailers on the back to manoeuvre around to ensure they could retain access to that boat ramp.
But we've already heard it's being used currently.
It may be, again, and they are, but again, if we formally allocate it as a space and set aside those 5, and we have, I guess, similar demand as we're having further along, then I think that would create us more issues with the users of the boat ramps.
Right. Questions? It's been moved, Councillor Wiley, seconded Councillor Stain, so can I invite you, Councillor Wiley, to speak to
Can I
the
just
motion?
query, Mr. Maybe this would answer Councillor Benson Pope's question as well, but Councillor Wiley read out something. Councillor Peach has pointed out that number 1 needs to be considered before we move whether or not we want to commence the trial. And so either that needs to be incorporated into Councillor Wiley's motion or it needs to be taken first.
Well, it's not, I take your point, but it's not obvious that we have to do it in that order necessarily. But I accepted a motion. The motion put doesn't have to be the one on water payment, but it may be that we're going to have to consider these at some stage. So I would invite Councillor Wiley, since I've accepted his motion, to consider including.
Then some direction is needed as to whether we are to give any consideration to what was spoken to us, because unless we decide to accept the late submission, we have to presumably ignore it, and I'm somewhat confused. My point of order is I'm somewhat confused.
His wasn't the late submission.
Mental state, it's not a point of order.
His was not the submission you heard wasn't the late submission. His was the only submission that asked to be heard. For what it's worth, I mean, they are separate.
Well, what I was asking Councillor Wiley was whether he would consider incorporating the relevant recommendations from that into the motion that I've already accepted.
So accepts the late submission.
Yes. So that
Your Worship, I believe if my motion passes, then it's null and void whether we accept it.
The simplest would be if you're comfortable to move motion 1 first.
That's fine then. Okay, that's fine.
Yes. Right. So recommendation 1 gets included. And have you given Pam a written copy of the receipt? Yes. So could you put both recommendation 1 and Councillor Wiley's
Which is motion 3.
motion 3 up on the board. For the sake of the clarity, because the technology has let us down again, the motion, resolution as I understand it, is recommendation 1 and recommendation 3 decline. Okay?
Recommendation 1 is accepts, and recommendation 3.
Yes, recommendation 1 is that the Council accepts the late submissions from the Bayfield High School and Bayfield Park Community Sports Trust, and recommendation 3 is that the Council decline the proposal to add an additional trial site. And I would invite Councillor Wiley to speak to those.
So we're not going to consider the one that we do have on.
Sorry?
It's taken as
Councillor Wiley.
Your Worship and Councillors, the Bayfield Park really is important to the community, and it's the wishes of the community that it is not used for non-self-contained freedom camping. In response to Councillor Hawkins, he asked about sleeping in cars and camping in cars. if you go down to McAndrew Bay and visit some of these people and see what's going on, you can definitely tell the difference between somebody who's sleeping something off after a hard night versus somebody that's camping in their car. In regards to Councillor Benson Pope's question around what's happening at McAndrew Bay, last Monday morning at 7 a.m, there was 8 non-self-contained vehicles parked in that area and 2 self-contained. The problem we have with non-self-contained camping is that a limit is not making any difference. If there's the availability to park overnight, then these people are choosing to park overnight and not worrying about the rules. 5 becomes 8, 8 becomes 10, and it just multiplies. When we look through the information we've received, we can easily see, find the right page, that there is already 5 parking spots at Ralpham Park at McAndrew Bay, 5 car parking spots at Ocean View, these are for non-self-contained, and up to 37 spaces for people at Worthington. That to me tells me that we're looking after people with non-self-contained vehicles. The other part is there is a very good campground nearby that needs to be basically referred to, and I don't believe that we should be taking business away from this campground. Again, I go that the community does not support this, and anybody who sees sport down there on a Friday and Saturday night for the cricket will understand how active that park is, plus how active it is with kids through the day. The other issue we really have to look at is we're still in the quiet season for tourism. We can talk about all the vehicles we've seen so far, but come after Christmas, come the new year, the numbers will double or triple. We haven't even started to see the influx yet, and that's my biggest worry. We're talking minimal numbers right now. There's not a lot of vehicles on the road. So come February, March, what are we going to be facing? Yes, we can do better with freedom camping in Dunedin, but opening Bayfield Park to non-self-contained camping is not the way to go. And finally, sorry, I do want to acknowledge the written submissions from Bayfield High School, Aoraki Athletic Club and the Bayfield Park Community Trust.
Councillor Thompson.
I'm going to vote against this, although reluctantly. My reason that I'm going to vote against it is that I think that we have some obligation to find out whether we can reduce the burden on McAndrew Bay. It's the only reason that I'm going to vote against it. I've supported the freedom camping process we've had in place. My patience is running thin on that. But part of me wants to find out whether if you do this, if you put another area on this side of town, will you reduce the pressure, or will you result in the same amount of pressure in McAndrew Bay and then replicate that in this new place? Now, if the answer is that's what you do, then the next time Councillor Wiley moves a similar motion, I'll support him. I think the issue for me is a problem still a problem if nobody notices it? So if we have camper vans parked up in various places over town and nobody's being bothered by it, then my feeling is it may well be that what we're demonstrating is that concentrating them in one area is having more of a disadvantageous effect than an advantageous effect. If, however, we put this second place in place and we find that it spreads that burden and that there are not significant inappropriate behaviours occurring, then it may tell us that what we need is a number of sites around town to spread that load. And I just don't think we've got the answer to that question, and I want to have the answer to that question. I'm not pretending that I don't think there'll be problems. I think there's every chance there will be, and there's every chance that Councillor Wiley would be able to say, I told you so. But I think unless we experiment, we won't find out whether bringing them together is a solution to the problem or the creation of the problem. They still exist either way, but if we disaggregate them all around town and they don't bother anybody, then that tells me we should be disaggregating them. I don't have the touching belief that they'll go to the camping ground, but let's find out. And I think we can afford to take some risk over a short period of time, and if that is of some benefit to McAndrew Bay, then they'll be extremely grateful. If it's of no benefit and we have the same problem in town, we'll know we're probably doing this the wrong way around.
Councillor Peake.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to support the motion, but because I think it is the right decision, and the weight of submissions pretty clearly tells us the issues. But I do feel for the staff, actually, because they are wrestling with a problem that is quite difficult to deal with. And I'll give you a demonstration of that in a minute. But thank you for at least looking at a way, at a solution to ease the pressure. Now, as an example of the pressure that is on the Otago Peninsula, I will just paint you a picture of what it looked like at Portobello Domain on Saturday night. There were, at about 9:30 to 10 p.m, there were a dozen vehicles there. No camper vans. There were vans, wagons and cars with about 30 people camping. There were 4 tents. There were, and the people were well behaved. There was no issue. They were parked close to the toilet facilities there, which were ample. Rubbish bin was not ample. One rubbish bin was soon overwhelmed. And they were on the grass in the woodland area to the right of to the right of the domain. Why were they there? They were there because an app which they can download for a small cost, 99 cents, called WikiCamps, was telling them there was this freedom camping site at Portobello Domain. And I suspect there were even more vehicles later in the night as the Blue Penguin or Little Penguin viewing facility down at TAIERI Head finished up. So you can see the kinds of pressure that these people are around. They will use these sites. 600 metres from where they were is a camping ground. $16 per head. For people who come in tent, that's fine. But they showed no interest in going there. In fact, the camping ground manager was telling me that he has people coming in, sneaking in to have showers, and not from necessarily the ones on Saturday night, but ones that park up the road a little bit further. So we do have we have a challenge on our hands to deal with the situation. When we were proposing to look, and we proposed, the staff identified a number of sites, you'll remember, around the peninsula, they had to be at least 2 kilometres away from a camping ground, and of course the Portobello Domain is not one of them. So a number of people were having a problem with that around Portobello. However, I'm ever hopeful. I think we will get to a point where we can identify some sites, and hopefully the feasibility study that Richard referred to will come up with docks approval, some dock land maybe, and maybe some other site that maybe even a private site, I'm not sure. But anyway, hopefully we'll get to a point where we have control of this issue, and that the ongoing issues at McAndrew Bay are not going to get relieved, I don't think, through January and February. Will kind of not disappear, but maybe just become less of a concern to locals. So I'm supporting this motion.
Further speakers? Councillor Hall.
I'll be supporting this motion. The problem I see is more long term. If we open a dock-style camping ground on the peninsula, how do we stop the people using these ones that have already allowed them to use? They're advertised all over the country now. People have brochures everywhere. So if we decide we don't want them to use them, how do we stop them? Apart from having security sitting at the gate 24/7.
Further speakers? Well, I will be supporting this motion. I don't think in this instance given that we've got a problem at McAndrew Bay, I don't think that a problem shared is necessarily a problem halved in this case. I think it'll be just a problem doubled. In good faith, we put freedom camping facilities next to a playground in McAndrew Bay, caused all sorts of problems. I can't believe that we would think it would be an intelligent thing to do to put it next to a playground in Bayfield Park, even virtually closer, with toilets further away that are virtually inaccessible and unlit. The neighbours are likely to be just as upset, and then we'll have two lots of two communities in uproar just as we enter the height of the camping season. And I also, I guess in principle, struggle with the idea that ratepayers resource facilities for tourists when we struggle to resource facilities for our own community, especially the ratepayers, commercial operators who are expected to pay rates to subsidise these facilities for people who are competing with them. I struggle with that. So I'll be supporting it too. Councillor Wiley, do you wish to exercise your right? Councillor Benson-Pope.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't support the motion. I think the reality is, and I'll just take the time to remind councillors, is that this report is in response to a request from councillors for staff to go out and try and find an alternate site or sites, as well as continuing the conversation about the dock site, which won't solve the problem, by the way. It would be great to have, but won't change the issue, so that the pressure can be taken off McAndrew Bay. I don't think anyone thinks what's been going on at McAndrew Bay is satisfactory, but the conversation earlier and the questions make it quite clear that there is a problem, and that problem's not going to go away irrespective of the decision about Bayfield Park or McAndrew Bay subsequently when the report comes back at the end of the trial. And it's clear from the answers from staff to the questions that the big problem is we have no sanctions. And while the nice security people politely ask people to abide by the rules, some do and some don't. And the people I've spoken to at McAndrew Bay say it's sad that one or two inconsiderate people spoil it for the rest. Well, there's nothing new in human behaviour, and that is what happens. The reality is, and as you said the last time we had this conversation in the council committee, these people are camping in their cars, non-self-contained cars, all over the place. They're still going to be doing that, and as Councillor Thompson said, I don't know what the answer either is to whether it's better to try and manage it in the way that our predecessor council did, and this one is following, or whether it's better to turn a blind eye and hope that the deposits in hedges and people's gardens don't cause too much offence. I think there are, of course, problems with a second location, wherever that might be. I'm a bit dubious about the weight of public opinion when, after advertising this proposal, we got two submissions in time, one of them from Fallow Street, and two late ones when Mr Saunders went out and prodded Ariki and the school to make a submission, which we have accepted. I think those concerns are natural, and those concerns are one that have to be managed by the council, and I think that's what we should do. I think the motion that's on the table is rather myopic. I look forward to it being defeated and hopefully an extension tried. Any problems that eventuate on the second site properly managed as best we can, and a rational review when it comes back to the end of the trial period about how we cope with this issue that's a very real issue and won't go away because of this decision or any other.
further speakers before I ask? Councillor Staines?
In seconding this motion, I think we don't want to create another version of the problem we already have. It seems to me that we have tried to provide the opportunity for freedom camping in a location where we believe the facilities would enable that to be done in a way in which the community would accept it. It seems to me that we have failed in that. We haven't failed, but the campers that are using it have failed. These people are not going to change. The good campers will be good campers, the bad campers will be bad campers. If you promote an area for freedom camping that is not continually policed, the bad campers are going to continue to be bad campers and the community is going to have to live with it. We do 2 security calls past in a day. All of us around this table know that those 2 security calls that go past are not at a time when we catch the people necessarily who are abusing the privilege. They arrive, we hear later at night after the penguin viewing, the numbers build up. The facilities are right there beside them, but they choose still not to use them. As a council, we've known that the rubbish facilities aren't good enough, but we haven't done anything about that. To me, once you promote an area for freedom camping, it will stay that way for a long time. So I'm saying the trial that we have had going is not working. We made some amendments to it. It appears those are not working. That trial completes at the end of April. Why would we want to create another one for a 4-month period and leave ourselves with that legacy? Our effort needs to go in, I think, to a dock-style camp where there is the ability for 24-hour supervision that will cope with the pressures that are being put on. So I will be voting for this motion.
Councillor Wiley, you want to reply?
The community has shown quite clearly that they do not wish to have Bayfield Park open for 2 people. So I would like everybody to support the community and the community's wishes on this. I think it's important, especially with a school, a playground and sports being played there. And we need to really do need to look further at freedom camping in Dunedin. And I would support staff in looking at that, but Bayfield Park is not the place.
Right, I'm going to put it. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? No. Could I have a show of hands, please? All those in favour of the motion, please raise their hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's carried. 22, and I think that we need to move the chair, or someone would like to move the minutes of the Grants Review Hearing Committee meeting. Moved Councillor Wilson, seconded Councillor Hall. Any discussion? I'll put all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Now, on to the report, and welcome Paul, welcome Rebecca. Do you want to introduce it?
Yes, thank you. I think actually in my 18 years at council, this is the first time I've sat in this seat. Every other report has gone through a committee meeting. This has been a 2-phase process. The first phase was started back in April with a community consultation, was around setting the framework for this grants review, and then we set up the second phase here is more about the actual wording of the grants review. And we would like to thank, the hearings committee and all the submitters that have actually helped us formulate this in a better way. There are a couple of things that we do need to point out right now. It does need a sub-edit, and that is an edit for grammatical errors, and also we are referring to it to the grants committee, and in our next paper it should be the grants subcommittee. So those sorts of just changes need to take place during the process. And we've given you a paper with some amendments to item 4.3 on page 22.11 and to item 4.11 where we just need to remove the actual figure, the $50,800. That we don't mention that figure in any of the other grants, and it was just it was put there during the consultation process so that the arts community could understand where the two pools of money came from, what they look like, and it should have been removed at this stage because in Council's wisdom during the annual plan and long-term plan process they may want to change that, and it would just make that process far easier.
Questions, councillors?
I just wonder, Paul, whether it would be helpful to talk through the property arrangements changes,
Okay,
just
certainly.
for the clarity of the...
Yeah, okay. The property arrangements are there for the sake of transparency. To receive this grant, you must have a formal lease with the DCC Property Department. The Property Department are empowered to make a commercial return. So these organisations, Council have considered in the past, worthy of sitting on our land but not able to actually pay the full rent, and so this is the process whereby they receive some of that rent back. So it's in one of those situations where our department gives them some money and the property department takes it back from them for the sake of transparency. What will happen is that in October each year we go to the property department and say which properties are due for a rent increase, and then we factor those into the actual budgets so that we can cover that in the budgets. So the committee itself, when they get to hear this, there's no room for them to move. It is formal agreement, lease agreement around how much rent you're going to pay and then how much we will contribute back of that rent. So therefore, okay. So therefore we've said that the existing grants stay as they are and are just administered by staff in the normal process, but any new applications, anyone new coming into Council's property portfolio that may be considered for that, we take to this committee and then go to the Community and Environment Committee. Councillor Calvert and Councillor Noon.
I'm just wondering where it fits in with all what's going on here, the monitoring of the grants, because some grants are given to people on the basis that something is performed or achieved or something has to be done after the grant is made. And if we're delegating the ability to make the grants, are we also delegating not only the ability but the obligation to monitor them? And if so, are we asking somewhere for there to be a report back from the committee saying we have monitored these, we are satisfied with these ones, that one hasn't done what they said they would do with the money? Any of those processes?
And the intention would be to annually go back to the grant subcommittee and say that these are the grants that were administered in this behalf, and we would have it available there, the reports that the organisations are required to make. The agreements have a list of, it's not just for rent, even though we're paying for rent, we're asking them to have different outcomes that support the community. You know, for example, the Regent is asked to provide certain variety of performances that are available to the wider public, and you know, those things happen in their agreements, so yes, we'd have that monitoring there.
So would that, the results of that monitoring be expected to come back to the Grants Committee and through that to the Council, or how would the results of the monitoring come back? Would that be annually afterwards saying, with some sort of report? I just don't like to see it all disappearing in one direction and no function to report back in the other.
It would be annually to that grant subcommittee and then through to this committee.
Councillor Noon.
Thank you, Worship. My question is just around the landfill grants on page 2214. Just so I understand, at the moment that grant availability for groups conducting community work is administered by a staff member rather than a committee, correct?
Correct, yes.
And the transition towards a waste minimisation grant, I assume that the existing grant regime will stay in place until a new grant regime is in place?
Yes, that is the intention.
Okay, and the criteria for the new grant regime, will that be a political decision or a staff decision?
My understanding is that the Waste Minimisation will come and consult with both council and the public as to what that should be.
Thank you.
Their intention is to obviously minimise waste, and sort of examples of how to do that.
Excellent, thank you.
Councillor Hawke.
Thank you. Welcome, Paul. I have a question about the neighbourhood matching, the Dunedin City Council neighbourhood matching grant. And I appreciate in times of austerity the intention behind trying to make our grants funding go further. And it is apposite, I guess, considering the report we have from the MOSCIEL Hall Committee, albeit on a far smaller scale. But it does concern me the potential, the perverse outcome of only investing this money in wealthy neighbourhoods that have the resources to be able to come up with their half of the funding for these kinds of projects, and just wondered what kind of thinking has gone on to try and mitigate those concerns.
The intention of this is that it doesn't actually have to be cash funding, that it could be in-kind labour, a number of other voluntary aspects to it. And also the concern of this is when we went out for consultation is how would you, a person in a neighbourhood, how would they put up their hand and say, I'll take the funds and I'll account for it. So the intention of how it is that we would give a work order so that the neighbourhood then would go and purchase what they need. We get accountability that they purchased what they said they were going to purchase, and we work on. So it's not intended that it would just be for people who can front up with the cash. We would, people who would be time rich, we hope that they can actually come and contribute to as well.
And just second, and so to clarify at the other end of the spectrum, it's possible that they could put up zero financial contributions so long as they have the in-kind support.
Yes, yeah, and that could be, let's say it's planting on a reserve somewhere, that could be a number of hours clearing the actual reserve, preparing the plot, and then we pay for the plants, for example. They've done all the other labour, and we contribute to the plant side of it.
And apologies, I can't find its explicit reference in here. But the last time I read this, there was specific reference, and it has been the policy so far that we won't fund events that are seen as fundraising.
Correct.
That's still the case?
Yes, that's still the case. Yeah.
How does that fit in with thinking about trying to make organisations more self-sufficient and less reliant on public funding if that handbrake is on them, that we won't support them to produce events that may make them less reliant on us in the long term? Follow that logic.
Yeah. I don't have an answer to that, sorry. It's a discussion we've had around if you do fund a fundraising event, and let's say they come to us and ask for $10,000, why don't you just give that organisation that they want to make the donation to the $10,000? Yeah, and so there's a different type of, how would you put it? There is a number of ways you can raise money, and there are different types of purposes that people would actually do fundraising for. Some specifically to let's raise money for the MS Society, but then others maybe let's raise money for our own organisation, and we haven't grappled with that properly in this document.
Councillor Thompson.
Well, it's really just following up on that actually, because if hypothetically, for example, a charitable organisation decided that it wanted to set up an op shop or something like that and needed some assistance to get it off the ground, but the end result of that would be that it would be much more self-sufficient going forward, would that come into the same essentially the same situation? It wouldn't be something we would look at.
We do look at op shops and that for rates relief grants. A number of them receive that now. So in fact we are subsidising that currently. But if it was a fit out for the op shop, yes, perhaps we would look at that. That would be up to the committee. We'd put it in front of the committee and say, would you consider this? It does make them independent in the end, but we're not actually, it's that raising money to make them self-supportive rather than saying, group of people saying we want to raise money just for this purpose, and they're not connected to that purpose.
So if your answer is that there's a degree of discretion there, then I'm comfortable.
There is, yes, there is a degree.
I've just found the wording of the clause, and it's so it's 3.12 on page 22.9, and it's projects that do not qualify, programs or events with a primarily religious, political, fundraising purpose. So I think that gives the subcommittee the scope for precisely the circumstance that Paul's explained.
I was just going to provide the same clarification. I do have another question, and I probably should have put this earlier, but it's just dawned on me. In relation to the property arrangement grants, the proposed new approach which you've articulated, what would the process be for council to reconsider whether it wishes to continue an existing arrangement? Sorry.
I mean, when we were, it's probably a similar situation as when we were working through new applications, and so if council decided that it no longer wanted to hold the building or allow the person that's in one of the buildings, and they're fairly key stakeholders that the city has, I suspect it would be subject to a full report to the committee concerned, and
so if
all
that's
part of a wider process, or the organisation's fallen over.
If that's the case, then would it be more appropriate for 4.3.6, the new 4.3.6, for staff to report directly back to the Community and Environment Committee or some committee of the whole, which would give, with that annual report of administration, which would give the whole council the opportunity to review and see transparently where that funding was being applied?
That's a decision for you to have. I would support it staying as a Part B item of the grant subcommittee, because the grant subcommittee will ultimately have the greater understanding of the grants world. But it's either way could work.
Councillor Cal.
How do you see, as a matter of transparency, the interaction that this policy has with grants or favours, or for want of a better word, with council-owned company facilities? I'm thinking here that at the moment, for instance, we allow the stadium $750,000, that $250,000 is thought of as a community grant, $5,000 each week to the stadium market, or whatever replacement of some of those will be. It might be that it was raised earlier that we might want to give people cheap rates to the town hall as a matter of community, whatever. So do those fit in to this regime, or do you imagine that they would have a separate sort of set that is administered in a separate sort of way?
My understanding is that there is going to be a report presented to council along what the criteria should be on that and how to process that, and we have had discussions with both our parks team and DVML on what their criteria could be and their processes could be, and that discussion leads into that eventually there may be a merger of that information, that process, into this here, but it hasn't been finalised at all. Yeah. But it is just under discussion.
Further questions? Right. If there are no further questions, would someone like to move? Councillor McTavish.
I'm happy to move, but I think I would like to make one small amendment to what staff have proposed, and I understand that Pam has amended motions with all of what staff have proposed here incorporated. So I would move all of what staff have proposed with one minor amendment, that being a change to 4.3.6, that said staff will provide the Community and Environment Committee via the Grants Subcommittee with an annual report on the administration of the scheme, and that delivers what I think Rebecca was saying, which is a Part B item on the grants subcommittee, which would then be provided to community and environment.
And I take it that there's an amendment in addition to the first recommendation that incorporates the amendment that's been circulated. That's right.
Can you read out again so Ken can type in the motion?
Yeah, sure. So 4.3.6, staff will provide a community and environment committee via the grant subcommittee with an annual report on the administration of the scheme. And Pam, I just wonder whether one needs and maybe it's been added at the bottom, but the final sub-edit is completed before publication. Is that incorporated? Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, thanks.
Okay. With the understanding that 4.3.6 is added in.
Sorry, just a minute.
Plus what's on the board. Is there a seconder? Second, Councillor Wilson. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor McTavish?
I'll just wait till the end.
Right. Councillor Wilson.
I'm very happy with the motion, but I'd actually just like to take this opportunity to speak to the last part of that, which is thankfully Councillor McTavish has added, and just say thank you to the members of that subcommittee who've been on it, some for all my time that I've been on it, which is 7 years, and they've done an absolutely fantastic job, especially Marion Webb, who I think is the one who's done the longest term there, with Liz, maybe. But anyway, they've been a fantastic contribution. They really have brought a new dimension to the file, to the way the workings of the committee. And I just want to really acknowledge their really wonderful contribution.
Councillor Banks.
I would like to endorse exactly that. I was involved with the subcommittee some 10 years ago and frankly found it wanting in a lot of areas, and am very pleased that there's been such significant improvements, not just in the clarity of the document now and the transparency of it, but in the giving of appropriate guidelines to make it much easier for people on the grant subcommittee to actually make appropriate decisions. So thank you very much for that, and I'm really delighted that it's gone to such a good degree.
Councillor McTavish, you want to reply?
Yeah, just briefly, Your Worship, Councillor Wilson, I think, said it all. I think that this committee has been really outstanding in its commitment, particularly over the last 1.5 years or so, which has been an extension of the original agreed time on the subcommittee, given that we had this review underway. So, yeah, that's been really significant. I think staff have also played a fairly significant role in guiding what is a very complex and convoluted set of grants through a review process. This report does note that once the Council's full 8 strategies are in place, a further review will be required to ensure that allocation of grants is meeting Council's goals. And I think that was one of the things that was most difficult participating in this review. The lack of the full suite of strategies did make it very difficult for us to fully understand the degree to which grants can contribute towards our strategic framework and the goals that we're seeking to achieve as a council, and to ensure that they are fully aligned. And therefore, I think that these are well aligned with the strategies that we have in place now, but I think there is some further alignment that will definitely need to be done when we have that full suite in place. So gratitude to staff, thanks to the previous, or to the outgoing committee members, and I look forward to seeing how some of the newer elements of this grants paper roll out.
Right, I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Now, note that we're moving straight on to what was item 24. We'll do that now, and then we'll go into non-public as on the agenda. So, do I understand you two staying there for that? So, on to what is labelled item 24. Any questions?
There is, again, as a flow-on from the amendments we've made for the property arrangements, we would like to actually make an amendment to change the delegation, and should be on the back side of the paper that Pam handed around. So it's on 24.6 page. We want to just add that the property arrangement grant is a Part B item.
So that can go on the end of the recommendations.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions, councillors? All right, would someone like to move it? Move Councillor Staines, second to Councillor Lord. Speakers? There being none, I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right, I'll move from the chair that's that.
Cozy Homes. Cozy Homes.
We're going into non-public now. Okay, we'll do 23 in that case, since it's the same staff. Any questions?
Well, I'm happy to move, but with a slight amendment. Sorry, Your Worship, I'm very happy to move that. I understand that you'll be a trustee on this, but I do think it's important that we also appoint an alternate if you can't attend the meetings, which is slightly different. Or is that already covered?
My understanding that was already covered in a previous report where Councillor McTavish is the alternate.
Okay, if that's okay.
And there was an alternative, which was Councillor Pete.
That's great.
Yeah.
I know that's fine.
Am I correct?
But I'm not sure if we can do that in the actual trust deed itself.
No, not in the trustee, but I mean from attending meetings. If it's already covered, that's fine. I'm still happy to move you with it as...
Move. Do you have a question, Councillor? Which way do you second? Move Councillor Wilson, second Councillor Hawkins. Any further speakers? I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you all. Right, I'll move from the chair that we move into non-public as per the order paper. Second to Councillor Staines. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 26, you stay with change to standing orders of public forum. Are there any questions? Having a move from Councillor Noon, second to Councillor McTavish. Any discussion? Question, Councillor Staines.
Just in terms of the standing order itself, where it says that a chair has the discretion to decline a speaker. And in item C, so this is on page 26.5, I don't like the fact that it just refers to recently. Recently for me could be a year ago, it could be a week ago. I tend to think that, do you think, get it into a question, do you think that it's reasonable to use the word recently, or would it be better to have a guide in months that gives the chair some certainty of when they can and cannot make that decision?
I think that's a question that the chair's considered in drafting this, and recently was seen as being a suitably an appropriate word. But again, these are your standing orders, and so if there's something that the meeting would prefer to have.
Any further questions? It has been moved for second. Any discussion? I'm going to put it. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item 27. Court Convention Policy and Procedures. Mr. McKenzie, welcome back. So this is basically putting in place a new fraud prevention policy to replace one that's 7 years old. Questions? Councillor White.
Mr Mackenzie, will this policy be rolled out across DCHL companies, OTAGO Museum, TAIERI and any other operations affiliated to DCC?
So the policy will be rolled out across the DCHL group. Obviously the OTAGO Museum, we have no ownership stake in that, so we could not enforce that upon them.
So TAIERI, the art gallery?
The part council.
Councillor Benson-Pope.
Thank you. I notice in the report and the attachments there's no alignment of capture in terms of the paragraphs on the scope of the policy. Specifically in attachment 3, the scope, the reporting and investigation policy, the scope is different. So the only one that captures councils, by the way, is different from the organisational scope on attachment 2, which is City Council wide, which again is different from the scope on attachment 1, which is employees of and contractors, which certainly doesn't catch elected members. And I just wondered if there's any reason for that lack of alignment, or is that just because of the genesis of particular documents and they're all different?
So attachment 3 is the old policy. So attachment 1 is the new policy, and attachment 2 is the procedures.
Then why don't they cover the same? What's happened to council?
They're gone from both.
See?
Because they are.
From both.
From the new one. Well, council elected members are neither employees nor contractors to the DCC. They're not bought by this. That's what I'm saying.
We are self-employed contractors to the DCC. That's our tax status.
Regardless of that, you may well be right, Councillor, but it'd be interesting to know whether it should be, whether it should be specified.
There is an expectation that this would be applied to councillors.
And you don't think it needs to be specified?
No, I agree with Councillor Van Der. They are deemed as independent contractors from a tax status.
Further questions? Councillor McTash.
I just have one query, and that's just in relation to, it occurs in a number of places, but for example, at the bottom of 27.5, it clearly states that the fraud control officer is the group chief financial officer, and then on the next page, it says report to the fraud control officer, or if this is not appropriate, to the group chief financial officer. And I just wondered whether that is there for a reason, or is that...
It's there for clarity, trying to make sure people know who they should be reporting to. It would be fair to say that the old policy was actually very, very unclear who you're supposed to report to, and it'd be fair to say with events over the last 6 months that it became very unclear who people should be reporting these activities to.
So is that effectively there to safeguard against the event that the fraud control officer changes from the group chief financial officer?
Yes.
Right. Thank you.
I'm hoping someone else will take that on at some stage.
Councillor Van Der.
On attachment 1, 27.3, the first definition in terms of behaviour that's got to be looked at is unauthorised use of facilities, vehicles or equipment for personal gain. I've had a number of complaints from staff who somehow resent their vehicles having GPS fitted when their managers don't, especially when they're given the reason for the fitting of the GPS is that it's for their safety in the event that they run off the road somewhere and can't be contacted, and the GPS will then allow them to be rescued or whatever. So my question really is, why don't, given that it's a safety reason that these vehicles have GPS, why don't all vehicles, including the managers' vehicles, all have GPS? And also, is it anticipated that you're going to have an automatic GPS monitoring system to flag unusual vehicle behaviours, for instance?
We're currently actually reviewing the GPS that are in vehicles. That technology has moved quite a long way in recent years, and the product we've currently got is only in limited use across a small area of departments. But there are cost implications, which obviously I don't really want to increase the cost for the ratepayers, so we're working through that process currently, but we'll be putting something out to the market through a competitive tender if we're going to change the process overall.
So is that a yes, it is going to happen for all vehicles, or a no, it's
so effectively we have to look at the cost benefit of doing it, because there's a significant cost in putting GPS in all vehicles, but my general feeling is that it should be consistent across the organisation for all the reasons that you've outlined.
Thank you.
Councillor Kelvin.
Sorry, just back to Councillor McTavish's question. I thought that we had actually changed that wording so as it doesn't say the Group Chief Financial Officer, or if that's inappropriate, the group. I thought we were changing those words so as that they made sense. They actually sort of don't. And there was two ways of changing it, and I thought we'd had this discussion earlier. One of them would be if it said the Fraud Control Officer is currently...
What page are you on?
Bottom of 3.
3 or 4.
3, 4, 27, 5, sorry. I think we intended to change it and we just haven't quite got it right yet, and it would be good to get it right, because there's absolutely no point if we've named the Fraud Control Officer as being the Chief Financial Officer to say in the alternative the Chief Financial Officer. So it either needs to, and this discussion was had, it either needs to say the current Fraud Control Officer is, or from time to time, Fraud Control Officer or whatever. It just needs fixing because it's not quite right, and it was discussed as being not quite right before.
Yeah, okay. I don't understand that.
What we've got at the moment is something that says, if you suspect a fraud, tell the Fraud Control Officer. The Fraud Control Officer is the Group Financial Officer. In the alternative, if he's not the appropriate person, then here's 4 choices: the Group Financial Officer and 3 others.
So the reason it has been left in is because of the fact that the Group Financial Officer might not always be the Fraud Control Officer.
Yes, in which case the page before just needs to say the Fraud Control Officer is currently or from time to time or something. So it just needs...
Agreed. Yeah. And halfway down 27.7 the same. We'll fix it.
Are there any further questions? There being none, would someone like to move? Move Councillor Staines, seconded Councillor Peake. Discussion. Councillor Wilson.
Sorry to be a bit time wasting, but I'd just like to say I begrudge that this report has had to come to us and the reason behind it, because I think it's really sad that we spend time discussing stuff about the negative stuff, and we very rarely spend time saying thank you to the staff who do a fantastic job. There's 99.9, probably 9% of them are fantastic people, and we don't ever go and look at the other side and say thank you for that extra mile that they give. And we focus too often on things like this, which is unfortunate. I appreciate it's our job in governance to do so, but I would hate to think that we spend more time sometimes doing this than saying thank you.
I'd be tempted to think actually weren't speaking on the subject, but anyway. Any further discussion? There being none, I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Right. So that is the end of the public part of the agenda. Oh, that's right, sorry. 38A, the paper from the university on the renaming of University Oval. There is, I think you might want to, can you sort yourself? That's right. So this was, can I just give the council context for this? I was approached only last Wednesday by the Vice-Chancellor and Chancellor about asking me if this would, if I thought this were possible. And apparently it had been raised, as the Chief previously mentioned, some months ago, but owing to what was technically called a stuff-up within the university, it never got any further, owing to confusion around the name of the university as much as anything. So it did come to us rather late, but the university feels that there is, I'm probably stepping into your territory here, Mr. Graham, but the university feels that the upcoming Cricket World Cup, albeit that it will be a clean ground and they won't be able to, the Cricket World Cup people won't use the name University of Otago Oval if that's what we decide to do. Nonetheless, the university can use it, and ultimately they will get exposure from the fact that their name is associated with it. So that's why they wanted to do it, and that's why they needed to do it relatively quickly. So, questions? I hope we can answer them. Councillor Thompson.
Well, I know I was just going to signal I'd be happy to move the referendum.
Okay, well, I'll note that. And any questions? Councillor McTavish.
Just a couple of questions of clarification. There is a current lease agreement in place for this ground to the university. Is that right? It's referred to in
I believe so.
In the heads of agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah, a long-term lease over certain parts of Logan Park, entitling it to exclusive use of that area, and owns the improvements comprising the grandstand on that part of Logan Park known as the University Oval. Is that remains the case? Do we have any other parts of our city's green infrastructure that have a similar lease agreement associated with them? And if that's the case, are they named according to that lease partner?
Rugby football clubs.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Just from a sporting point of view, there are lots of organisations that have long-term leases with council green infrastructure. Numerous cricket clubs, rugby clubs, bowling clubs.
And would those grounds be named? I'm just wondering if there is a precedent for this. That's what I'm trying to establish, or whether we are, by virtue of this decision, establishing a precedent which may then roll out to other commercial entities with long-term leases.
I think we need to keep in mind that currently it is officially known as the University Oval.
I understand that.
And so the only change is University of Otago. Yeah.
I understand that. I guess I'm seeking to understand the broader context.
But what I'm suggesting is the precedent, if naming something after the leasee is a precedent, then it's already been done, calling it the University Oval. That's my point.
Sure.
But I don't know the answer. Councillor Lord.
I was just going to say, I'd be willing to move, but I wonder if we could just, I was just thinking of it says, I can't see where I read it now, next page, where it's saying that the expectation would be that any changes would be borne by the university.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a disadvantage. A change in name by the updated of all collateral associated with the stadium to reflect the change in name. The costs of these changes are unknown at this stage, but it is anticipated that the university would meet these costs. I wonder if that should be put in as a condition.
And they have agreed, if I may, the university have agreed to meet the costs subsequent to the report being drafted.
Okay. Councillor Wilson, did you?
Oh, look, I was concerned about the precedent, and I was somewhat shocked, probably because it was after reading a whole lot of other stuff that I was feeling less inclined to this. But I have to say that I've now thought about the Dunedin Community House and a number of rugby and other fields that we have owned and have leases on that okay. Maybe not commercial, but they are. I think the University of Otago sports clubs that go in here are not commercial, and they use it in that sense. It's a recognition of their link to the University of Otago and the sports clubs that are based from it. So, to that end, I think there are already precedents there.
Is there any further questions?
wasn't a question. I thought we were in debate by that.
No, well, it's been moved and seconded. I take it, Councillor Lord, that you have the seconders. Do you think question, Councillor Cooper?
Not, I think this is an amendment. Can we just put in as an amendment, the university having agreed to cover the costs?
Yep.
Just so as we've got it down here in that.
Yep, that's fine. You happy with that, Councillor Staines? Councillor Lord?
Yeah, I was just mentioning.
Oh, good. That's right. Okay, we're into coming to discussion now. Councillor Hawkins.
Question. My other question. Is there anything, and apologies if I missed it, but is there anything in these agreements existing or following this, were it to be approved, that prohibit the seeking of commercial funding, be it as a naming sponsor of the venue or otherwise?
I don't know. Sorry, do you know? I don't
understand the question.
How can you explain that?
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is if it were to be in the same way that the stadium is Forsyth Bar Stadium, were we of a mind to seek commercial naming rights sponsorship for this venue? Are we currently able to do that, or would we? Or would that be made more difficult by essentially giving it corporate naming rights?
Well, I think what would get in the road of it is the fact that we have a heads of agreement with them already.
Yes,
that's right. So there is, all this is about is changing the name, but there's already a substantial legal contract between the university and the DCC with regard to this land. So that would be the impediment. I don't think we could sell the rights to Auckland Institute of Technology or something at the same time. Councillor Benson.
Can you clarify the situation around the funding of the restoration of the stand? Was that paid for by the city or the university?
It was paid for a fundraising appeal that was coordinated. I don't believe the city paid anything. I know the LA Press put in a substantial sum of money towards the refurbishment of it.
My understanding is that it was a partnership, and there was, because you're referring to not only the restoration of the grandstand, but the additional piece at the back.
Well, I think just
my understanding is a partnership. The city did put so much in, it might have been 2 or 3 mil or something like that, and then the university put the balance, and there was a fundraising trust.
But I don't think we put anything into the grandstand.
That was put money into the addition, but whether it went into the grandstand, I'm not sure.
Right. If that's all the questions, we'll come into discussion. Do you have another question, Councillor?
Thank you. It just relates to the heads of agreement, and on 38A8, Clause 3 refers to the fact that this agreement shall remain in force until merged into the final documentation giving effect to the development concept. Has that been done? Do we have a, given that this was signed in 2000?
Look, I'm sorry, we don't have those staff here, they haven't stayed, so I'm sorry, I can't answer those questions. If you need an answer, we need to delay the report.
It does look like the subsequent document has done that. It's a document subsequent to that.
But I wouldn't put my hand on my heart.
I'd have to check.
I'm sorry.
So the deed of agreement might be the finalised version.
That was my reading of it, but again, I don't know. I couldn't go and ring for you, but it is a document that's subsequent to that first one.
Yeah.
And just for clarity, what is the haste around this report? Why did it need to be dealt with?
My understanding is that the World Cup, Cricket World Cup advertising and everything will go out very shortly. Now, the Cricket World Cup people won't be saying this is at the University of Otago Oval, but at the same time, the University of Otago will be able to say in its communications, the Cricket World Cup is being held at the University of Otago Oval. They can't say that at the moment, and they want to get some of that stuff out. That's my understanding of where it's at. So I quizzed the Chancellor and Vice-Chancellor in some as far as I had the chance at all, because it was all pretty rushed. and they have confirmed that regardless of whether the agreement the city has with Cricket World Cup, regardless of whether that agreement allows us to call it anything, this is still, they see an advantage in renaming the ground the University of Otago Oval. That's the haste, I think. Any further discussion? Councillor Peck.
Yeah, we should be doing everything we can, I think, to help the university leverage its profile, and I'll be supporting this. But nonetheless, it does sort of, it's certainly a follow-up to their association with the Highlanders franchise. I think that's pretty clear too. I just wonder whether, broadcasters in the future are going to be calling it by its long-winded name, or just simply by the University Oval, which I would expect it to be called, certainly locally in the future. But I'm happy to support it.
Further discussion? Councillor Thompson.
Likewise, I want to support it. I really do believe that if it weren't for the University of Otago, this city would be called Invercargill, and we would be looking substantially different. And I do believe that this is a very simple way in which we could offer some support. It's not as if it's something that's named after somebody else and we're proposing to take that away. It's something that's already named for the university, and we're simply clarifying that name to make it clearer. And I believe that if that can provide some commercial support for them in maintaining the university at the top level in New Zealand, then we should be doing what we can to support that.
Councillor McTavish.
Just briefly, I will be supporting this. When I initially read the paper, I had some concerns about whether or not we could make a distinction between this and any other naming rights that we may wish to effectively seek some sort of revenue from. But I think having explored that issue in relation to the heads of agreement and the deed of agreement that we have in front of us, I'm pretty comfortable that it's a historic agreement, and in that sense we should be supporting the university to make the most that they can and that we can for the city out of that existing agreement. So I'm comfortable that we could make a distinction between this and any other proposal that might come to us.
Well, I'll be supporting this. I think this is pretty simple. It doesn't, if there are other aspects to the heads of agreement, whether they're finished or not, the renaming doesn't change any of that. So I'm judging this entirely on, is it to the advantage of the city and the university to allow a name change? And my conclusion is that it is. I think we should be doing what we can to assist the university in its promotion of itself. And in fact, we work in various other areas doing exactly that, promoting recruitment of international students hand in hand with the university. I see this as another way we can support them, so I'll be supporting it too. Councillor Thompson, do you want to exercise your right of reply? I'm going to put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. I believe is the last item on the public agenda, and I will move from the chair that we go back into non-public and try and find where we left off. Oh, yes. Second, Councillor Staines. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried.